Hey everybody, coming at you, it's Denver here. Welcome back to another episode of Game Talks. And today we'll be doing one of my favorite games, which is weird because it's a racing game, and I'm not very good at racing games except for this particular one. Without further ado, let's get into it. As I said, I'm not very good at racing games. Ever had been Gran Turismo, Mario Kart, which is a little better because it's a bit easier, but still. Even like something like Mod Nation Racers or something like car racing games that for some reason I'm just bad at. Forza, yeah, that one too. But that changed when I picked up Sonic Riders. I knew it was a racing game, but I was like, whatever, it's Sonic. I like Sonic, so I played it, and I was actually pretty good. I think the best, but I was a lot better than I otherwise would have been. I don't know why. I think because the mechanic is different from a regular car racing game, which I wouldn't say too different, but still different enough as to make it, I guess, easier, question mark, to be able to play. And I appreciate that. It's to this day the only racing game that I can actually consistently get like first place in. Beyond that, no other racing game can I do this, and like ever, I'm just bad at them. But at any rate, Sonic Riders is a game about the world's fastest hedgehog riding an airboard to be able to win races. Immediately have some heads cocked and some eyebrows just furrowed, because you saw like the opening cinematic kind of deal, where he was trying to get after like the new characters, Jet, Storm, and Wave. I think was it Storm. I think I hit off his board. And Sonic was riding it like for the first time, and Jet was like, "Oh, not bad." And then Jet, because he's better at this than he is, since it was Sonic's first time, it's kind of knocked him off. And then he's like, you're too slow, effectively. Sonic was like, and everyone's like, you're faster than him in your sneakers, just run. And yeah, just run, because he's faster than Jet in his sneakers. And I've always asked the question. I get it. At some point, you have to throw conventional logic out the window, because this is a game, and they have to be a game at some point, but I'm still like, run. And from there it goes into a story where, hey, Eggman, we're holding a Grand Prix, okay? And Chaos Emeralds to enter. Obvious plan is obvious. However, let's find out what Eggman's up to, so let's go. And that's pretty much it. They're just kind of like racing against the other contestants, like the Babylon Rogues, that the other group is called. And Eggman's like bots or whatever, and that's pretty much it. It's a racing game. Sure, you get like bits of stories and cutscenes, but it's on them getting better at extreme gear riding, and how Knuckles is like the only thing Tails is good at is making and tinkering with stuff, which again, that's what I think Sega feels like at this point, but that's a different topic for a different day. And explaining the Kutajakowski lift theorem or something like that. I'll move to the second game. The whole premise of the story is to beat all the races, preferably in first place. But I think the first beginning ones, there's leeway you have to be like in the top 3. I always try for first, because if I wasn't number 1, then there's no point. Because as I kind of guessed later on in the games, you had to get in first place. So I'd rather just be getting first all the time and just making sure I hit that, first place mark and being used to it, than not, and being comfortable with getting like second or third. And like the winner of like the Grand Prix would get like whatever they wanted within the power of Eggman or with the Emerald or something like that, And I think one of the best parts is that, oh hey, I'm gonna let the enemy see Sonic's board or something like that. I think she just takes it Wave, because Sonic's getting a lot better. There's a legitimate concern that he might lose. And so she's like, we've come too far, and plants a little explosive on the bottom of it. So when they're in the race, at the end there in that whole sandy desert area, before Sonic crosses the finish line, she detonates it, blowing up his board, so he's now out of the race. And then Jet wins, and then the final part of that game ensues. Where it's actually pretty fun because the trainer shows up, Tails picks up Sonic and gives him his new board. It was the Blue Star 2, I think, which is actually one of my favorite boards in that game. It's really nice, it's fast, it's pretty well balanced. It's not the hovercraft, which is just an unwieldy mess, but I guess that's the point. Anyway, then you race Jet and Sky Babylon, I want to say, right? Or that up in the air raised city place, because when he got all the Chaos Emeralds at the end there, when he illegally won the race because his boat blew up. I guess it could be counted as like a malfunction, but yeah. All of a sudden Chaos Emeralds, lit up, the cube he had glowed and raised, Babylon Garden, which is I think the original homeland of his people, which they were trying to get back to. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So yeah, they race one more time. Sonic proves that, he's faster and better. Then there's the whole "Can you catch the wind" line, and everyone goes home happy. And the Babylon Rogues story pretty much portrays the other side of it. And just, I guess, again, that's where we get revealed that she planted like a bomb when she did. It was like almost directly before the race or something like that. And she's like, oh, hey, let me see that. From Tails, and she just puts a bomb on, and I guess being the mechanic he is and the obvious red explosive there, he just didn't bother taking off. I'm like, you made this extreme gear and you're not going to, okay, whatever. Because that part always irked me. I'm like, why didn't he check it before or anything like that? Look it over. What could she have done? I don't know. She's the competition. I get it, you want to be fair and honest and whatnot, but let's be clear, these people are thieves. And for the most part, I'm not saying with everyone, but for a lot of the time, thieves are generally dishonest people. And as we know, blows up the board and bam. That's all she wrote. And I like it because in the Babylon Rogues, we get like two different kinds of stages. Like a daytime, then we get like a nighttime or a darker version of the stage, because the Babylon Rogues, one, and the Heroes one. That way we're not doing like the same courses like every single time. That gets kind of boring, pretty quickly. So I appreciate them for just jazzing it up a bit. I appreciate that immensely. Again, the story is effectively the same. You just get a little bit more context as to the plan and what they want to do with Race Babylon Garden. Because Eggman wants to help them. I think he hired them, wants to help because, oh wait a minute, a djinn or whatever that will grant them, his wishes or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So once it's raised, you beat both sides of the story. You fight the actual final boss, which is some bird djinn thing, which you have to hit with an attack. I want to say 3-4 times. That will count as like a lap. But it's kind of really cool because you get like this really like interesting haunted like ruined area, which when you hit him it flashes and it becomes all like advanced in technology, implying that this is just like a hologram and not really magic. I'm like, oh, that's pretty sweet. In fact, I also think this sand desert area, since I think those are the ruins of Babylon Garden, we see this kind of technology because that's what they used to make their like thing float. They use really advanced technology. Maybe some magic's in there too. They use really advanced technology. So when everything was over, you beat the final boss and whatnot, and hey, the bad guys aren't so bad after all, kind of moment, or something that happened before then or after. Because that's what usually happens in these things. Because you can't just have a bad guy be a bad guy. It has to be some kind of redeeming quality about them. But I guess something to be said about such things. People aren't all bad, no matter how bad they may seem. They found out that the treasure in which the Babylons had was this flying carpet kind of deal, which was the first extreme gear, which becomes an unlockable board that you can ride. And it is not great, It's not the worst, but it's not great either. I've almost never used it outside of testing with like, oh yeah, we got it, let's try it. So yeah, and I don't think I ever truly won with it. I did a bit of the computer, but against like my brother or something, I like almost never win. That would be extremely double for the hovercraft. Speaking of which, there's a shop in this game which you can't access different boards during the story, if I remember correctly, but you can in multiplayer. And me and my brother played that a lot. It was super fun. We spent hours playing that thing. Because when you like complete a course, you can get up to 100 rings. Now we'll go into like your pool, which you can go to the shop and get all these different kinds of boards. And I'm like, yo, that's awesome. So I think we got every single last kind of board in the game. All of them. Yeah, we had a lot of free time on our hands then. Like, we had like nothing going on. So yeah. So I don't play video games. They were like this boards and I think at the time skates and bikes. Second game there becomes a few more options, but I think they're just boards, skates, and bikes. That was really cool because I got to see what Sonic looked like air skating, like Shadow, who was also in this game, who I would commonly use since she's my favorite Sonic character, period. In the multiplayer, you got to go through all the stages played in the actual story mode, and I think one or two like it's like just Sega franchise themed games in general. That was really cool. And yes, you know, playing a racing game I was decent at with, you know, my brother, people that just enjoyed, because I could play a racing game which is very similar in a lot of aspects to Mario Kart, because go and hit the ring jars, you get like rings or an item to help you. It isn't necessarily random like that. It's set, if I'm not mistaken, but it was in a similar vein, and you always treated it as like Sega's or Sonic's answer to Mario Kart, and it was working just fine until they ruined it. But you know, that's good. I'll get into that when I get into that. But and then there was the battle mode, battle and mission mode, where you had to complete certain objectives, certain missions and battles and whatnot. Like there was certain balloons in this one thing, you had to do certain tricks in this one thing, the other one. We didn't go into that one a lot. We just liked racing a lot. We didn't really touch that one. We touched mission mode more. I think if you did all the missions or something, if you were diligent enough and skilled enough, you acquired Super Sonic, which was, you were Super Sonic, you were invincible, you just did whatever. But I think I had 50 rings as Sonic, and then you transfer to Super Sonic, and then, as per usual, every second you lose a ring. We got to do all like the different kinds of, I guess, type advantages. Because when you're on the track, there's like a stage, like hazard or stage, more like an expedient, like a shortcut, really, that you can only take if you're a certain type, because there's Sonic of speed, power, and flight types. If you're a flight type, you got to go to the flying rings. If you're a power type, you hit through like all like these like cars, or these big metal cylinders, or a wall or something. If you're a speed type, you went on the grind rails. Super Sonic can go, because Super Sonic can go on all of them. Super Sonic, nothing you can't do. And again, pretty neat. Fastest, strongest, invincible. I mean, Super Sonic. What did you expect? Like, yeah, and then as fun as it was, I love the time we spent like doing it and being in there. I felt like some of the characters I would like to have seen, I think it was in development before like Sonic 06 came out, were like, oh, Silverback in this game, or Blaze, or whatever, and those questions would be answered in the second one. Speaking of which, Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, I think, is not as good in terms of racing as the original, but still a perfectly serviceable racing game. Again, better at it than the other ones, but that isn't saying much. I'm just bad at racing games. And my main reason for that is, in the original one, you had the air gauge, and when that had enough air in it, you could boost, which allowed you to move faster, because it was a speed race, but you had to also conserve air. You couldn't just boost all the time. Sure, if you hit a certain threshold, you would level up and get more air in your meter, your gauge, depending on how many rings you had. But you still couldn't just boost whenever you wanted. You had to be more strategic about it, and I like that. It wasn't just boost to win. If you did that, you'd run out of air and have to like perform tricks or go through your spirit mechanic or something to be able to refill it, or go to like one of those that pit stop, those air filling stations where you can refill your thing to full or to any certain amount. But this game kind of did away with that, and I'm a little sad that it did, because now, the reason why, because now they had something like the zero gravity like mechanic meter thing, right? And sure, you could use it to move faster, but it was only in certain areas where when you did the gravity thing, you could like jump and go off of like the different implements to get a boost in speed, and then you'd be faster, but then you would lose that speed after a while because that's just how physics work. And I didn't like that. The races felt a bit slower now because of it. And that's my only true gripe with that game, that they got rid of that feature, which I don't think they should have gotten rid of. But at any rate, Zero Gravity, because that was fine. Like I said, it's a serviceable sequel to it, and I still enjoy it. Played a lot of it, me and my brother. More characters. I enjoyed that. And the story was about the same level. It was okay. Again, having to do with Babylon Garden and the meteor fragments that fell down. Called these meteor fragments that Mediotech found, hence its name Mediotech, which is secret. They, I think, run or controlled by Eggman, which explains a lot of how he can get a lot of resources. Probably has shell companies all over the world that just pay up to him. I'm like, that's pretty cool. These have these meteor fragments, and they can control gravity, what Sonic kind of discovers in the opening cutscene. That's pretty cool. And this has his extreme gear on hand. I already guess he was going to like the skating park or something. I don't know. And Tails can drive because he's driving a hover car, which I was like, all right, cool. It kind of leads into like the first stage, because these robots were stealing the meteor fragments. I think it's from someone else who had them for Eggman, because he wants to be able to, control everything. Run into Sonic, and while they're doing that, takes the thing, has it begins to fall slowly because he's doing gravity. Go into the first stage. And again, everything's connected back to Babylon Garden, which I do like the tie-in to that. I do, because Babylon Garden is just there now, never really truly addressed, and what that means. But hey, I guess that's what this one is for. You get to use the same colorful cast of characters from last time, right? And Amy, which I don't think you could use in the story mode of the other one. But I was like, oh, that's pretty fun. Get to use someone else beyond Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, and Jet, Wave, and Storm. The story's pretty much, again, another tournament race. And they're pretty much just going up against or running from the robots that that are there. They're trying to get their hands on the meteor fragments. And the Babylon Rogues know they have something to do with Babylon Garden, so they want them because it's their peoples, and Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails and them like, well, what's going on with these things, because they're just kind of doing random stuff and messing up the public safety. So they go through, again, the same kind of shtick where on the hero side there's different kinds of, courses. Well, the Babylon Rogues have like the same courses but slightly different. Like if one's fire, the other one would be ice. I'm like, okay, cool. I can get behind that. And that's effectively, again, it's pretty bare story, because I was learning more about what these things are, these meteor fragments, which they were the thing that allowed the Babylon Rogues, well, their ancestors anyway, to traverse the stars. But I guess they do like permanent damage to like space and time or gravity or something, which is why you probably shouldn't use them. But hey, we had to traverse the stars somehow. I guess maybe in open space it would have been fine, but I don't know. Like, that's why you shouldn't, make a jump to light speed on world, but hey, you live and learn. So, I mean, it's the same. It's a similar story. Because when you get to beat both, you can get to the end. You fight them just super robot-looking thing, like the ones you're fighting. Like they thought the whole story, and they're really cool. They're called the Mobius strip. But actually, I like this one a bit more than the other ones. Cool. The other one, like this one a bit more. I don't know. Maybe it's the whole more spacey-looking theme about it that I just enjoy a bit more. But yeah, you get a board at the end. You go the separate ways, saying, "Hey, maybe you're not so bad after all." And that, "Hey, I'll prove I'm faster than you at some point." And it's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. Again, Sonic's faster than those guys in their sneakers, but I guess this time it's a little more forgivable when they're manipulating gravity, which just use the meteor fragment bracelet thing to manipulate gravity while you're running. Then you're fine. You're aces. But whatever. Sorry if the story explanation a little bare, but that's effectively it. There's not a lot on the story-wise. There's not a lot of meat on their bones. It's kind of like a shell for the actual game itself, and that's fine. It's a story that's inoffensive. It doesn't suck, and that's all I'm really asking for. If you're gonna make it a shell, just make it a nice, not a kind of a bland, shell, kind of like a trench bread, where you just kind of put your food on, it absorbs it, and you just eat the food. That's really it. That's all I'm asking for. Again, there's multiplayer, and again, we spent a lot of time in that. But there is, again, more characters, and I just loved it. But returning are like Shadow, Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, the usual suspects. I think Cream was in the last one too, and Rouge. I didn't play them anywhere near as much as Shadow, so I almost just never touched them. But now we have like Silver and Blaze are in this one, and I loved that. I use Blaze a lot. Blaze is like up there with Shadow. It's my favorite character. So whenever I get a chance to play as Blaze or Shadow, I kind of get 50-50 on who I play. And the fun thing about this one is the boards also level up, but you also unlock certain abilities. Not only do you get faster, but you get like to be able to like run up these certain walls, which allow you to like run across these areas, which again isn't a shortcut, but now it's kind of locked to board rather than locked to what type you are. Because some of the other shortcuts in the other games, unless you had that kind of board, that kind of type, it was just not fair because they just gave you such an advantage. Like I'm thinking of one in the first one, the water one, where we first get to use Tails, and you get to just fly over almost this entire section before anyone else can get there, getting air and just moving a lot faster. And if you're in an advantageous spot, you can like even get, sometimes if everyone's clutch, you can get into first and just kind of stay there at that point. Really hard to surmount that. If you keep getting it, then they're almost just not passing you unless they get it too, and then you're about neck and neck again. But not everyone could do that. So having it locked to board, and the boards can transform into different like things, not just stay boards, but they could be like yachts, as they call them. They could turn into bikes, skates, other kinds of boards. You get different abilities. They could like they could grind. It was actually pretty fun. So there was more customization and variability. So it added on to the experience, which made me at times forget that it took away the boost, because it just provided something that I found so entertaining. At the end of the day, I still remember that they took my boost away. Again, the shop is back. You buy, again, boards. You buy skates, yachts, bikes. I think those are the ones in this one, if I remember correctly. If I'm forgetting one, I apologize. Again, there's mission mode and battle mode, and again, you beat all of those, you get Supersonic. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, they're racing games, so there isn't really a lot to them. The stages were fun. The gameplay is fun. It isn't a slog to play. It's engaging, and if you like racing games that aren't too terribly difficult, like me, since I'm bad at them, these are right up your alley. Unless you don't like Sonic, then I guess you shouldn't be playing this. Then again, I don't know why you're listening to this or watching this video. Yeah. And then the third one, Free Riders, which I did not play. It looked fine, but it had to be there with the Kinect. It just didn't look fun. They just like ruined it, and I just couldn't get behind it. So I've seen a little bit of it, but I've never actually played it like the other two. So I can't talk about what I haven't played. So with that, again, I like the game. I like the stages, both of them. I never played Free Riders, and I never will. The characters are the characters I like. The new ones are fine. They're serviceable. They're inoffensive. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. So I will thank you all for watching. It means a lot to me. And I will see you guys next time.